Hey, what's up, guys? It's Phillip Castle, and today I'm going to give you a walkthrough of my session for The Gap, which is out on Enhanced Progressive. So this track actually had a bunch of different sessions, and usually when I produce music, I'll have an initial production session, and once I get that to a point where I'm really happy with it, I'll bounce that down to stems. The mixing will be done, and then we'll get it back into another session, and then I'll do some further editing, some further mixing, some further production, and then from that, which is this session in front of you, and then from that session, I'll bounce it into a set of reduced stems, maybe about 15 or so, for a final mix polish session. I'll just take you through a bunch of the different parts here and hopefully give you a little bit of insight into my sound choice, my production process, and why I organized this track the way that I did. So I'll just expand all these tracks so you can see this. We have a kick here. This kick is a layered kick, so I have a transient from one kick and then the sort of low end from another kick. The snare also, it's just one track here, but it's made out of about 2 or 3 different layered snares. Every 8 bars, there are fills to sort of turn it around and add some interest. We got our hi-hats, so our main offbeat hi-hat, a ride, and then some loops and other hi-hats in the background. And I have an extra panning hi-hat, which actually makes a little bit more of an appearance in the sort of main drop. Crash that happens every 8 bars, and the snare build is really interesting. There's this main snare that does sort of main meat, and then this provides just a little bit of energy and 16th notes to sort of give it a little bit more power for the breakdown. Of course, there's sub drop when the breakdown starts, just sort of announcing that, hey, we're done this initial beat section. Yeah, so on top of the drums, there's my sub bass. All this purple stuff down here is bass. You may not be able to hear this unless you have bigger speakers. We have the initial call part of bass, so those 2 notes there. And then the sort of response part has a bunch of different parts. So this is a little bit chunky. This is a little bit crunchy here. And then this adds sort of beat from the rest of the sound. And there's a couple quieter layers here. There's a really, really quiet layer over here that comes in about 8 bars after the first drop starts, just to add a little bit of interest to the bass line. You can hear it, but it's just, it's just buried there a little bit further in the background. All together, so we got our bass, our drums, the track sounding good, but what really separates this and makes it really sing is all the other stuff that's happening. So in the background, there's all these different swells and vocal chops. Just love adding some atmosphere. There's these tinkles that come in. And there's a counter melody here. You can see I've been doing some audio editing with Flex Audio and Logic here. And so bass, drums, atmospheres. And then the only other component that comes in this part are the effects. And so I think it's really nice to just provide a little bit of pushing up and then really great noise I like to use, called prof noise. And then some risers. And an extra impact that happens. Once we get to the breakdown, the main chords that are doing the heavy lifting at the beginning are this sort of electric piano sound with the stereo delay. I really, really love. Just fading it in over time. And then once that gets introduced, we have the big piano chords that. And there's this little top note that's actually layered on top of that. You can't really hear it unless you solo it. But if I take it out, there's just something missing in the top, you know, sort of the top part of the chord there. There's some pads here, just adding some foundation, some chords there. And just like the initial section where I showed you all this sort of ahs that were happening up here, I have some stuff that does that. I call it the break background stuff. And I have like this little bird ambience that you can hear in the background. It's just really, really quiet, but just provides a little bit of an organic feel to it. We have some vocal swells. And then this really, really cool, these chopped up vocals that I've sort of slipped in the background here. And of course the bass. There's this one bass sound that I love to use in all of my breakdowns. Has some like nice movement to it. With the chords and the pads all set up, then the melodic elements start to take shape. And so this arpeggio, this kind of really made the track for me. This track sat around for a month, maybe 6 or 8 months, and I wasn't going anywhere. And I think one day, once I composed this, everything sort of came together. So there's 3 different layers. There's this candy pluck layer, which is a little bit what we call squarey. And then there's a couple saw layers that are providing some transient punch and top end. So if you listen to these on their own, like what I would call the Martin Vorwerk layer, just providing a nice crispiness. So you know, most of the work is being done by the candy pluck, but these are providing a really nice top end and crunchiness on top. So on top of the arpeggio as well, there's a syncopated lead that's accenting certain notes in the arpeggio. And this really is important because without this, it would kind of sound a little bit boring. So I call this the break/drop 2 lead. And I'll just play this on its own. So there's a bunch of layers that are making up this. Piano in there. And this note is sort of just like another pad that's going on in the background. The arpeggio without this versus with it. It just gives the arpeggio like a new meaning. And of course there's piano. I love just single note pianos with a lot of reverb and some delay. And it's not super complicated, it's just playing some of the notes that were in this main arpeggiated melody. On top of that, I have these really cool vocal A's, I would call them. They're from the Cashmere packs that I've done some effects to. And then some cool vocal chops. Of course, if you put that all together, like this. And of course there's a ride that comes in here. So giving the listener a little bit of a break here before we have the big payoff. This is an earlier version of the session, and actually before the second drop here, I added another fill and some more effects to give it even more payoff. So kick, got a new sub here, so we actually have a lower sub that was done with Serum, and then we also have just the main sub. So that low sub is really, really low, just giving it a little bit of that, you know, below 40 hertz energy. Really driving bass here, 16th note bass, a bunch of layers here. I can just play you a bunch of those. Hear them? Sequence. Alan Watts there. Love Alan Watts sounds. There's like a side bass that I use that's called, you know, from Simon Patterson, the Simon layer. So those together really, you know, take center stage. There's a longer layer that's a Mayan sound that's just playing a little bit of a different layer. I have a layer from my buddy Sender that I've done a collaboration with, that we're working on something new, and some other layers. Once the drop has had 16 bars to really go and have it say with that single bass note, there comes the fifth gear section where we bring the bass back in line with the chord. So the bass starts changing. We'll bring the piano back in. So you can see the blue, the piano comes back in as well. We had some extra notes here. The vocal chops and other stuff happens. And this is where the real payoff of the track is. Where everything that we set up in the breakdown really comes to life. And after this, I love just giving the listener and the person on the dance floor some time to recover. I would call this like the cool down period. We'll start fading out everything, and we'll start building up and transitioning back into the first section that you heard with the crunchy bass. And so all this purple stuff here is just the main bass being filtered in. You can see there's like some automation there where I'm just automating the cutoff on some filters. And yeah, the outro is kind of like the beginning of the track, but a little bit different. And this is when DJs will start mixing in their next track. Just, you know, there's about a minute left of the song now, so just giving them the time to start mixing in their track, and mixing their mind. So yeah, I hope that you liked this production walkthrough and got a little bit of insight into my production process for the Gap, and perhaps also my other productions. If you like this, let me know, and maybe I can do another one soon for another track. And if you have any questions, let me know. Send me a message on social media, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching.